Hello, everybody. Welcome to, Thursday. A lot of folks around here like to call it Friday, but it is Thursday. And we are just mere days away from the end of this election season. We have a big show planned for you. We are awaiting our first guest and our co host. George Wallace is having some technical issues, and we are awaiting the arrival of the man who is in a very big race. A lot of attention has been placed on this race, and this is South Carolinian Jaime Harrison, who is running as a Democrat against a longtime senator and high ranking Republican. That would be Lindsey Graham. And Jaime Harrison is going to join us this afternoon, as well as Judith Browne Dianis. And we're going to be talking about voter suppression and other voting initiatives, what's being done in these last few days and with her organization as well. And hoping to have a young man that many of us know and love from television. His name is Jesse Williams, and he is an activist and will be joining Ms. Browne Dianis as well. So here we are at the end of a very long day and an exciting day. I had an opportunity to talk with Senator Kamala Harris, and we'll be bringing you that interview soon. And also, thanks for the opportunity to do that. She has a wonderful staff. Okay, so we have okay, so let's go. Hello, Jaime Harrison. How are you?
I'm great, Sybil. How are you?
I am so glad to see your smiley face because I am such a fan of yours.
I'm such a fan of yours. Your voice I have heard for a big portion of my life. I love you. I love you.
Jaime, you can go ahead and say it. I've heard it a lot this week, believe it or not. Did you grow up listening to the Tom Joyner Morning
Yes,
Show?
I did. Yes, I
Oh is right. Jaime, I'm so excited for you. I got to tell you, George Wallace is going to, and he's going to be just as excited, if not more than I am, believe it or not, if that's possible. But the first time I heard about your run for the United States Senate was during Congressman Clyburn's big fish fry,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so you were there with all of the candidates who were then trying to get the nomination, right?
Yeah.
And everybody kept saying, "Oh, you got to watch out for this guy, Jaime Harrison. He's on the move. He's on the move. He's going to be running against Lindsey Graham." And so I thought, well, okay, doesn't he have to go through a primary first? And that you had no opponents, right?
Well, yeah, we had somebody who said that she was thinking about it, but she dropped out.
Okay, all right. So that just smoothed the route and gave you plenty of room to go and do your magic and to create quite a race. You have done this, and by you have done it the right way. As an esteemed politician in the state of South Carolina, and you learned at the feet of the master. That's Congressman James Clyburn, of course. You learned how to run this race, and you are doing it. How are things looking for you?
Things are looking so well. I mean, Sybil, we have broken the early vote turnout here in South Carolina. We've had over 1 million people to vote here in South Carolina, and 30% of them African Americans.
Yeah.
And we are now outpacing the Obama rate of voting here in South Carolina. So it's looking really good. We just got to keep that pace.
Yeah.
Keep that percentage. And if we do, then I'm the next senator-elect from the great state of South Carolina.
And Jaime, how about looking at it as, and I've been trying to study the numbers too, in terms of a repetition of what happened in South Carolina during the presidential primary and having the groundswell of support, especially from Black women in South Carolina. Are you finding that?
Yes, and you know, not only just Black women, but Black men, younger voters, and white voters. We are getting a greater share of white voters than any Democrat has in a long, long time here in South Carolina. And that's because, Sybil, you know, in the end of the day, I've said this from the start. that this is not about Democrats versus Republicans or progressives versus conservatives. It's about doing what's right versus what's wrong.
Right.
And people understand that because we all have values by which we determine how we interact with each other and how we look at the world. And folks just want solutions to the problems that they're dealing with. And, there's so much more that we all have in common than the things that make us different. Right. And I've just been focused on speaking on those things that we have in common, trying to build a better place for all of our kids.
So, Jaime, and you talk about these things. You talk about, of course, improving the education system there in the state of South Carolina, which during this time, the pandemic, everybody in every state is feeling the effects of what is going on with our education system. But you were focused on this long before the pandemic began. You were talking about internet access. You're talking about healthcare, which before the coronavirus came about. And talk about some of those things and that you are paying attention to, that you say that Lindsey Graham has stepped away from, has totally ignored in terms of the needs of South Carolinians.
Well, so you're right on the money. Listen, Lindsey's he's been senator for almost 18 years now. He's been in Washington for 25 years. And in that time, we've had problems the entire time in terms of healthcare, education, economic opportunity, and infrastructure. And so what the coronavirus did was exacerbate those problems, made them worse. But they were already problems even before the coronavirus. We live in a state where almost 250,000 people don't have health care because Republicans like Lindsey refuse to expand Medicaid. We're one of 12 states that has not expanded Medicaid expansion here in the state. Just 2 years ago, 14 of our 46 counties had no OBGYNs. Think about that. 14 out of 46 counties, no OBGYNs. In terms of, 4 of our rural hospitals have closed. In terms of infrastructure, our roads are falling apart, the bridges are falling apart, and 38% of rural communities in South Carolina have no broadband internet. None. And so, I often say, how do you expect our kids to compete with the rest of the world when they can't even connect with the rest of the world?
Right.
What do they do in the midst of a pandemic that forces us to work from home, to do what we're doing right now from home? What do you do if you're a teacher and you live in that community, or if you are a parent and you have kids at home when you can't connect to the internet? And that is how we are failing our people, and we need real leadership. And Lindsey doesn't care about those things. He only cares about being famous in Washington, D.C. You see, he ushered in the Supreme Court justice, but he hasn't lifted a finger to do another COVID relief bill. And people need help right now. So I think our message is resonating with a lot of folks because they're tired of being ignored. They're tired of being placed, being secondary to everything else that Lindsey's trying to do. And they want somebody who's going to work for them, their families, and their communities.
And I think you're being kind by saying secondary, because I think they're tertiary and beyond, dropping down the list, in terms of what people are getting. I mean, who doesn't know somebody in South Carolina? Who doesn't have a family member in South Carolina and understand what the quality of life is and how you are trying to improve it? I don't want to go any further in our conversation without giving you an opportunity, because you still need money in order to have people support you in this election. So give us the information about how people can support you.
Folks can go to JaimeHarrison.com, and I spell Jaime a little differently. It's Jaime Harrison.com. And we love contributions, but also if folks want to volunteer. We got text banks this weekend, we got phone banks. Any of those things could be extremely helpful because we're focused like a laser on getting out the vote.
Can people do that from other parts of the country?
Yes, they can. We got friends and family from all over the country that are texting and phone banking, and they're doing everything that they can to call to folks here in South Carolina, encouraging them to go and vote in this election.
Well, here's a fellow who's going to do everything he can to make sure you are elected in South Carolina. Hello, George. Well, there he goes with the famous hand over the screen there. Hey, George.
George, you're muted.
George, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Okay, you work on that, Papa. So, Jaime, you are also getting a lot of support from celebrities. One of my favorite people just down there a couple of days ago, that was Common, huh?
Yes, Common was here. Charlemagne was here. It was so great to have them here to just talk to the voters here in South Carolina. And that was really, really important. And we had this great concert, Sybil, where, 350 cars. We were on Benedict College. It was fantastic. Probably over 1,000 people there. And it was such a positive thing. And there was so much energy. So it was really exciting to have Common here.
Jaime, what does it mean? Because you really are, for lack of a better term, you are one of those people who really did pull yourself up by your bootstraps, didn't you? I mean, your family has just got to be so proud of you and the things you've done educationally. But now, this young man, tell your story.
Yeah. So my mom was 16 years old when she had me, Sybil, and she dropped out of high school. And it was my grandparents who helped raise me. They had my grandmother had an 8th grade education. She picked cotton and then worked in textile plants. My grandfather had a 4th grade education and he did construction. And so, they didn't have a whole lot of money, didn't have a whole lot of education, but they taught me the value of working hard and helping other folks. Yeah. I was the first in my family to go to college. I went to Yale University. I came back home and taught 9th grade social studies at my alma mater. I then worked at a nonprofit to help other low-income kids go to college. And then that's when Congressman Clyburn brought me into his staff. And I got a law degree at Georgetown. And the congressman asked me to be the executive director of the House Democratic Caucus. I was at 29, the youngest and the first Black person in the history of the House of Representatives to ever have that role. And then I ran the whip operation for him when he became majority whip, and then became the first Black chair of the state party here in South Carolina. So I'm so fortunate and so blessed in so many ways. And the reason why I'm in this is to make sure that other kids get the same types of opportunities. That's why we all do this work.
When you had a plan, did you have a 5-year, 10-year plan? And was the Senate a part of your bigger picture?
Well, the Senate wasn't a part of my picture. I've always loved politics. I've always been interested in it because I saw it as a gateway to really impact change and to improve the lives of folks. And so I've always been behind the scenes rather than being a candidate myself. And then finally, it was the Kavanagh hearings. I watched those hearings, and not that I thought that Lindsey was going to vote against Kavanagh. It was the treatment of Dr. Ford in those hearings that really triggered me. That said, what, this is a different guy, and he needs to go. And so, I started looking into it, and next thing happens, I'm filing to run for the U.S. Senate. So it wasn't really part of my long-term plan. But we're doing it, and in the way that I'd like to do things, when I get into something, I go all in.
Yeah.
And when somebody tells me I can't do something, that just adds extra fuel to the fire because I'm going to prove you wrong.
That's right. That's right. Jaime, it reminds me of 30 years ago when there were the Clarence Thomas hearings, and what that hearing looked like, the Senate Judiciary hearing, what that looked like that propelled so many people, especially women, and from my home state of Illinois, Carol Moseley Braun, going into the United States Senate. And so it's amazing how these things work. But God has a plan, and I think that his plan for you is working beautifully right now. And once again, please give people an idea about, as we're going to try to bring George in so he can at least say something that we can hear him. But as we close, please tell people how they can reach you.
Yeah, go to JaimeHarrison.com, JAIME Harrison.com, and you can sign up to volunteer, contribute, anything you want. You can even find out more information about what we are doing out in the communities. We have a community service initiative called Harrison Helps, where I actually go into the communities and help people deal with the things that they're trying to get over. We gave out over 800 backpacks, raised $15,000 for kids whose parents lost their jobs because of COVID. So I believe in showing my values and not just talking about it.
George Wallace, can you hear us?
I hear you. Can you hear me at all?
Yes, sir, George. Yes.
Jaime, I just learned how to spell your name properly. It's so good to have you here. I've been spelling Jaime, Jaamie. We're so happy to have you here. Jaime, you have no idea how much America loves you. You just fit in. Are you running as not a Republican or Democrat? Or are you just a people's servant? Because that's what you look like. Everybody loves you.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that. And that's what it's all about, George, is serving the people. And you got to sometimes you got to put the labels aside and just figure out how you put the people first. And that's where I am. I'm always going to fight for my people here in South Carolina.
You know what I like about you? You're smart too. You're using Lindsey Graham words against him in your commercials. I love that, and I don't know why Biden and Harris is not doing that. Using their words against them. You got Trump fighting Graham, and that's so good, man.
Well, that's what you have to do, George. The most powerful way to persuade somebody is let someone use their own words. Right. I'm not making up anything.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Now, how do you feel having your opponent on television just begging people for money? He stopped by my house today, begged for a couple of sugar, 2 eggs, and some flour and $150. He's
George,
begging.
Would
y'all please help pull me?
George, we have a very limited time with Jaime, and so we want to thank him for his time.
Ask him where he got to go. Ask him where he got to go.
I'm going to Joy Reid.
Please, bigger name rule here, George. And tell Joy we said hello. Would you?
I will. I will definitely do that.
Congratulations. Good luck to you. We so appreciate your time. Senator-elect Harrison will be calling you in a matter of days. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it big time. We're coming to North Carolina. We're coming to North Carolina party.
No, we're gonna go to South Carolina. Those of us who are going to with Jaime, we're gonna go to South Carolina.
Okay, I'll stop with you in South Carolina. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Jaime. We appreciate your time.
Sybil, that was great. Sybil, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on every day. We had a storm here in Georgia, so I think this was crazy.
You have Zeta going through there, right?
Yeah. Oh, we had Zeta, and it was bad. It was bad last night. So, but I don't know whether you ever been in one of these storms, but it was bad. The trees are down everywhere. As a matter of fact, some of the trees, people are going to use them for Christmas trees. They just go out and then they bring.
And hold on to them until December. Yeah.
But Sybil, how great was that to have Jaime on with you? That was so nice. And you always ask the right questions, whether I'm here or not. So you did a great job of doing that.
Well, I had to, pick it up because, George, I knew how excited you were, and I wasn't going to let this opportunity go by without including, some thoughtful questions. But also, I needed you in there for the levity and just to let him know how crazy you are about him, because you have been, just talking him up for months. And so I'm really very grateful to you and to others that made this happen so that he could come on today.
Well, I do it because of you, because you make my day. You don't know that. All week, I sit around, I watch you guys. Last night, I watched Myra talking about what we're going to do how we're going to celebrate. I'm going to get in my car and just blow the horn on Tuesday night. That's going to be like Christmas Eve. It's going to be Christmas Eve, just blowing the horn. No shooting the guns now. We don't want to shoot the guns. No, but definitely not. This is so wonderful to have him on. I think you are the hardest working lady in radio. I see you and I hear you on Willie Moore Jr. and everybody else. How do you do it? You're on in the morning, you're on in the afternoon, and you're on at night. How do you do that, Sybil?
I have an incredible group of women who help me get there and do all that I do. As you know, you hear me mention, of course, Yolanda. You've known her all of her life.
Yolanda Adams, is that what
Yolanda Starks White. That was the laugh. That's right. Our youngin' tech guru Chica Dilly, and Cherie White also helping us, and Ward White. So I have a great group of people. So thank you for allowing me to mention them, because I could not do this without them.
It's so much more informed and so much empowered. I know I am. I'm learning a lot from you. That's why I want to listen more and more and more. I'm learning so much, and I know America is. And y'all hit that like button. Punch that like button.
Thank you, George. Thank you. And please subscribe to our newsletter. What you need to know. I even got a chance to ask the senator today about subscribing to our newsletter. So we will. Now we have another guest. We're going to move on, George.
Yes.
And we are going to talk to Judith Browne Dianis. And Judith Browne Dianis is an American hero, if you will, as a civil rights attorney. I don't know if do you like that term?
Hero? Not really. I just do what I do, No, I don't need to be a hero.
Well, I think you are. As a civil rights attorney, you are also co-director of the Advancement Project, and that is an organization based in Washington, D.C. And as such, the Advancement Project, can you tell people what that is?
Sure. So, first of all, thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for coming on. I'm sorry. I'm just so excited to have you.
Okay. So we are, Advancement Project is a national racial justice organization. We work with grassroots groups across the country to end structural racism. So part of the work we do is voting rights, criminal justice, and educational equity and immigrant justice. So I'm here in Florida because there's a little thing called an election.
Yes.
And so I'm here to make sure that they don't steal it on my watch.
Okay. And this isn't new to you because if I'm not mistaken, was it 2000 when you were there and involved in that election as well?
Right. So I was one of the lawyers who brought the case on behalf of the NAACP and African American voters in Florida when that election was stolen. And so I was out here trying to figure out what happened to Black folks because the quiet as kept, the Democratic Party did not really worry about what happened to Black voters. So it's groups like mine that had to go and investigate and then sue Catherine Harris, who was the Secretary of State at the time.
Remember that name? Yes.
Remember her?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you in a big city like Broward County where there's a lot of
Yes.
African Americans?
This is where I am. I'm actually in Broward County.
Wonderful.
And let me tell you, I'm here because we do have a lot of Black voters here. And I just want you all to know that the turnout is not good yet.
It's not.
What did you say?
The turnout of Black people, you heard me, is not good yet.
Wait a second, Florida, you got great weather there. What else do you want? Florida should be kicking in right now.
I mean, it was.
Why do you think that
it's
is?
running about 45% right now. It was 69% in 2016. I think part of it is because the way in which voter turnout usually happens had to change in a pandemic. We're not canvassing and knocking on doors, right? Instead, we're texting people, and our people need to be coached. You need to go in their door and be like, "Hey, no, you coming with me." So this weekend, Advancement Project, in addition to doing voting rights litigation and suing over those problems, we're doing a big parade at the polls with the NAACP and the Leadership Conference. We're going to have entertainment and bands and food to entertain those people who are waiting in line so they don't leave the line.
Are you specifically working with Blacks or people of color? How are we doing in people of color, the Cubans and the Puerto Ricans?
Well, it's probably about 50% overall, but Black people is lower.
Judith, I want to hold on to that point. We are hearing something, and I think it's coming from you, and I'm not sure.
Is it my? I don't know what it is.
There's a clicking noise that happens when you speak.
Yeah, I can take out I can get rid of these. That's the only thing I can do probably.
Let's see if we can.
Or just go without the AirPods.
Normally we blame it on George, but I don't think we can this time.
I don't know what it is. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. We have technical stuff all the time. How's that? Can you speak for us?
It's still clicking, huh? I can hear it. Yeah.
Say that again.
Ask it to disconnect the Bluetooth.
Okay. Can you disconnect your Bluetooth?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Sure.
That's better.
I haven't done it yet. That's better. I'm like, I haven't even done it yet.
George is so encouraging. He's like, yeah, that's it.
That's hilarious. Let me see. Sorry about that.
Let's see.
How do you like to be addressed? Browne Dianis, or just
Dianis?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Okay. All right. So that's a problem. But I'm still hearing that clicking.
Give me 1 second. Mike.
Would you like some ice cream while you're waiting?
George? What's the flavor of the day, George?
Today's flavor is called something new. It's called Crispy Trio. It has Belgian chocolate, vanilla, and blackberry. And it is awesome. I'm going to need to hold the...
No, I can't hear you.
Okay, she can't hear us at
Let's
all.
see if I can hear you through here now.
How about now?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear us at all. Okay, so we need to... Can you refresh your page? If she can't hear us, then she doesn't know. Hmm?
I hope she can come along and hear us. Really for the work that you're doing. You're so important. And, I saw you on TV last night, MSNBC.
I can't hear you.
She was awesome.
Okay. So, say that
I
again,
can't
George.
hear you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We're gonna work it out. We're gonna work it out.
We got rid of her ass just like that.
George.
She was so good last night on MSNBC explaining that what she does and being and it's called the Advancement Project. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. That's exactly it.
What she does is just so important. Somebody working there checking on us. She does the same thing that the lady out of it, Miss Hoffler does, right? Out of Atlanta, pretty much.
I'm sorry, say again?
She does the same thing Ms. Hoffler does, the lawyer from
CK, it's part of the National Bar Association. They're all in there and talking about the different issues that we are faced with in terms of voting this time around. Voter suppression, voter engagement, you name it. And as she noted just a few minutes ago about how things are going in terms of Black folks not voting at the level that we need them to at this point before the days just whittle away.
Sybil, do you think it is because it's so crazy in Florida with the rate spiking?
I think the virus is definitely having an effect. I think that people are just, there's a lot of reasons, and perhaps you can speak to that. But just based upon being where we are and seeing the stories and reading the stories, as far as the coronavirus, definitely, I think there is still a lot of concern, especially among the older voters and the younger voters too. Making sure that they know they need to get out there and not only go to the polls, but take others to the polls. That's what we're focusing on, especially come Tuesday, and making sure people have a plan to get everybody to the polls.
Why is Florida always screwed up? And now it's screwed up on the Black side and the white side, because other states, Blacks are turning out more and more. I think Michigan might be a little short, but other places we're turning out in huge numbers. And Florida is just, I think they'll be there on Tuesday. I hope they're going to be there on Tuesday.
Well, George, as you know, and I've lived and worked in Florida, you've worked in Florida, the rules are just different there. Totally different.
Florida is the most effed up state in America. No
George, I don't think that's the way we're going to get people to vote.
Okay, you're the best people in America. You great people in America. Make sure you get out there and vote Tuesday. Take your friends. There's so many different nationalities in Florida. People of color.
Judith, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
We're still making that noise. I don't know why, but I mean,
you know what it sounds like? It sounds like somebody is typing on their keyboard right behind you or something. I know it's not, but that's
just me. It's just me. So I mean, I just do want to say that I think one of the things that
hang on 1 second, Judith. George, we're going to take you out for a second because last time it was your fault. Okay.
Here we go.
Look at there.
Look at that.
Sorry, George. So, Judith, can you speak to Florida and speak to what we were just saying in terms of people not getting out?
So, I mean, I think that the turnout is a result of the pandemic. And I think that, and this is what they knew would happen. Like the people who don't want us to vote, this was their calculation, was to make it harder for us to vote, because then we would have to choose between our health and our right to vote. And so, we sued the state of Florida right after, during the presidential primary, because the governor had decided, like, he was not making any precautions whatsoever. He's a COVID denier anyway, right? And so his thing was, this is like business as usual. And we sued him because we're like, no, it's not business as usual. So you need drop boxes, you need curbside voting. And we ended up settling. But this is what they've done, right? Texas, the same thing. Georgia, they want to make us jump over the hurdle, choose, and they're hoping that we will stay home. But Black people, you can't hold us down. People
right.
are standing in lines, just not here in Florida yet. So we're hoping that this weekend will be an extra push where we'll be able to get more voters to the polls. We're having souls to the polls on Sunday, parade at the polls on Saturday. And so we're just going to keep pushing. And at the same time, we have to watch to make sure that intimidation doesn't happen. That's something we're concerned about across the country, like the so-called militia, police at the polls also. So we're monitoring that, and we're, following up on complaints from voters. And then, if we have to end up suing, then that's what I'm here for, and we'll get into business too. We hope we don't have to go that far, but I think that our people are resolved in most places that they're going to participate because there is way too much at stake, right? Between COVID, police brutality, access to healthcare, we have a lot that's riding, and so we just got to reach out. If you know anybody in Florida, please call them. Tell them to get out and tell them to bring 10 people with them to the polling place.
Right. Because that is, I think the parade to the polls is a great idea. And because Florida is such a festive state. And so that's a great idea. Are you finding that there's a difference in the age of the voters? Because Florida is a state that, skews a little bit older in terms of the snowbirds and things like that.
Right.
Any difference in those who have come out so far?
Yeah, it's similar to Georgia. I think across the country, we're going to see a surge of young voters. This is the protest generation. Yeah. These young people in the midst of a pandemic decided that, yes, my life is important, but I could die at the hands of a police officer. Yes. Maybe not COVID. And so they took to the streets. They're the same young people who went to the streets during the March for Our Lives. They're the same young people who probably went to their first protest when they were young for Trayvon Martin, right? Yeah. And so they are going to turn out in record numbers. But we are going to see more people voting by mail. And I think some of our elders are going to vote by mail. What we've been able to do in Florida through the work that we do every day on voting rights is to advocate with local election officials to have drive-through drop-offs. So you don't have to even get out the car, just there's somebody there, you just give it to them, they put it in the box. So we're really trying to figure out all of the kinds of ways that we can make it easy for people who do feel vulnerable. But I think young people are going to turn out. I think young people and Black women are going to carry the day because Black women are not playing around. We are handling our business and we're taking our families with us.
Yeah, absolutely. The time is too important to dissuade people not to vote. What about the Supreme Court decisions regarding the counting of ballots after Election Day? Is that an issue in Florida the way that it was in Pennsylvania and North Carolina?
It's not in Florida, but so Advance the Project, we work in other states also. So we're actually in Pennsylvania, we're doing work in Georgia, et cetera. And so this back and forth has been around the date, right? Has been again because the Trump campaign wants to cut it off. Yeah. And they want to declare a winner on Election Day. But what is really important is that voters understand that we have to let the process go through. And that on November 3rd, we may not have a winner, and that's okay. Because most important is that every vote gets counted. In the state of Maryland, where I'm from, we have several days after the election, as long as it was postmarked by the 3rd. And listen, and what's important about this is they wanted to cut it off because they also, their tool of voter suppression this year was something that I would have never thought of: dismantle the postal service. Through rain, through sleet, but you're going to dismantle a postal service is so that we can't vote in a pandemic. And so they have tried at every turn. And then they turn around and say, oh, and these mail-in ballots are fraudulent. Anyway, no. We need to make sure that every vote counts. November 3rd is election day. It's not election count day. And so people need to buckle up and let that vote happen, let the count happen, and then we'll see where we are after that.
She is Judith Browne Dianis, and she is the co-director of the Advancement Project. And we're talking about, she's in Florida. She's there at ground zero for the state of Florida, and in anticipation of the things that are going on or that will happen as things are happening as we speak, I suspect. I'm in Texas, and so we understand about voter suppression with our Republican governor.
Woo. That man, let me tell you, and so here's the thing, Sybil, right, is that all of them are reading the tea leaves, and the tea leaves are not the tea leaves. The tea leaves are the demographic data, right? And they understand that the browning of America means a loss of power for them. Yeah. And they are trying to figure out all the ways that they can stop what is inevitable from happening right now. The fact that Georgia and Texas are actually in play, right, for a Democrat and might be purple this year. Texas, of all places.
I know, yeah.
I mean, but that's because a lot of work has been done with a lot of racial justice, civic engagement groups on the ground to turn out the vote and to turn out young voters in particular. And in Georgia, people were like, "Oh, you did that to Stacey. We're not going through that again, right?" Stacey Abrams, lost because you stole an election. So Black folks are like, we hold a grudge.
We remember, yeah.
So they're like, "Oh, you did that in 2018. No, we're going to handle you in 2020." And so that's also what's beautiful is our people are stepping into their power. Yeah. And despite Governor Abbott and despite Brian Kemp in Georgia, we're going to fight and we're going to get through these barriers, and lawyers like me, we're going to try and eliminate them. But this is the other thing is, after this election, we got to focus on fixing our voting system. Yes. And we got to focus on restoring the Voting Rights Act. So I hope that your viewers don't just go on November 3rd and forget when Congress gets seated again, we want the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed. Yeah. We need to make sure that Mitch McConnell feels hell, right? Mm-hmm. And all of these governors. And so voting is one tactic. It's one day where we're all equal, but then we got to do the work after.
Yeah, the work begins on November 4th.
That's right.
In the continuation of all of this, and I was going to ask you about the voter registration because Florida obviously, with the amendment that was passed by the state of Florida, and then DeSantis and his boys and girls decided they were going to impose that poll tax for all intents and purposes to prevent felons from being able to vote after they had been voted in by the people. So where are we now with that?
Right. So where things are is, so Amendment 4 passes 2018. Actually, we're one of the founding members of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. That day was an incredible day to have the parents come in. I actually came down for the vote for that. And then, what happened was the state then said, "Oh, but wait a second, you have to pay your fines and fees." So what has happened since then, it went to court. We've lost on our side. So Florida Rights Restoration Coalition raised money, like tens of millions of dollars, to pay off fines and fees for people and to have voting rights fully restored to voters. And I think it's in the tens of thousands of people who now had their fines and fees paid. But there's another segment of people who actually didn't have fines and fees, who actually could register to vote regardless. And so what is great is actually this past Saturday, I was here for a march to the polls that was free to vote. And it was returning citizens this was their first time voting. And it was incredible. So many of these folks, they understand the importance of this because they have not had a political voice for so long, right? And the laws that are in this country are the laws that put them behind bars, many of which unjustly. And so it was just a beautiful thing to be here with them. They celebrated and did this in about 20 counties throughout the state. And so we're going to see. This is the other thing that's been beautiful about what they did was they didn't just register people, but they are becoming a voting bloc.
Yeah.
So they have done a lot of education with people, brought them up to the state capitol so that they could lobby and understand how to lobby to move the laws to move away from mass incarceration. So, I think they're going to make a difference, right? That's like a number that people aren't really calculating in there, but I think they're going to make a difference. There's some of them are Republicans, some of them are Democrats, so we'll see. But they're disproportionately Black people, that's for sure. And so that work still has to be done because there are a lot more people whose fines and fees have to be paid.
How can people from outside of the state of Florida or just want to be a part of the advancement project, how can we become a part of that?
Sure. So you could go to our website, which is advancementproject.org. And if you do /vote, that's where all our resources are about voting. And we've got things that you can use. We have scripts that people can use to do your own video. Like I did a video on mail-in vote for the state of Maryland, just for my friends, and I posted it on Facebook. And I walked them through exactly what they had to do, including my 18-year-old daughter, her first time voting. She's like, I've never used a stamp. Where do I get a stamp? Yeah, I mean, but like young people, like they're used to like on their phone, they can pay a bill, they can order food. It's like, what a stamp. So yeah. So we have those resources on there, and then you can just look around because we do criminal justice work, we do policing work, we do education work. We're really well known for our work around the school to prison pipeline in particular, and just keep in touch with us because we're on the other side of this election. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that voting rights really works for all of us.
I want to talk to you about that because that school to prison pipeline thing is so distressing, obviously, in so many different ways. But the fact is that the woman who is the education secretary of the United States and her family and that long arm of their very rich long arms and having to do with the prison system, and so. Talk to people a little bit about that because that is something that, there are people such as yourself that are working on it, but a lot of us don't think about it on a day-to-day basis or become committed to stopping that the way we should.
Yeah, so at Advancement Project, we've been working since we opened our doors in '99 on the school to prison pipeline, which really is a set of policies and laws that not only push students out through suspensions and expulsions, but also criminalization, right? So what could happen is something small, like you may remember like the video of the young sister who was in class who allegedly had a phone, who was yanked out of her chair by a police officer, dragged by the police officer, and then arrested. And so what we've been seeing is, the police that we have in our schools are the same police that we have on the streets. If we don't trust them on the streets, we shouldn't trust them around our young
children. Right.
So it's not just the young people. They are being arrested in school for really ridiculous things, but they're also being assaulted by police in school. So we have a website that's called WeCameToLearn.com. And if you go on that website, there's a history of police in school. And it's important to understand the history behind these things. We started putting police in schools around the time of desegregation. Important, right? Because they wanted to make sure they could control Black children in white schools.
Right.
And then it grew when the crime bill of '94 was passed. It grew again because we all of a sudden had these so-called super predator kids that we had to control. And so what we've been doing is working with grassroots groups across the country to document the problem. And we've been on the edge of the police-free schools movement, which has seen since George Floyd was killed, has seen some wins in getting police out of schools and instead getting young people counselors, instead getting them restorative justice. Like, how do we create a nurturing environment for our children so that they don't feel criminalized? When they come to school, we want them to have joy and like learn and like love what they're doing, not feel like they're a walking threat. And so we've been doing that. And we also, on that website, WeCameToLearn.com, there's actually a map where you can scroll over and see some of the assaults. And it is hard. It's a trigger warning, but it is hard. Like I remember the 5-year-old girl in Florida
Yeah.
years ago, 2005, who was arrested for throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
So we're working with groups around the country to change the way that policing happens in school, to pull police out, to get counselors in and get teachers the resources they need, and have restorative justice programs so our children can feel nurtured and loved.
You're really speaking to the choir here. I am with my executive producer. We have a yoga studio, and a part of what we do, and she is the spirit leader of this, is have a mindfulness program. Trying to take it into the schools, right? Because not only for our children's sake, but for the teachers as well, and for the parents. All of this in order to clear their minds, to give them that spirit to breathe, and to go in with the joy of learning and the joy of teaching, as opposed to the depressing situation that they often find themselves in.
Right. And a lot of our children are dealing with trauma, right? Their parents are dealing with trauma.
Yes.
And I worry so much about our children when they come back to school after this pandemic.
Yeah.
For the schools that are still closed, or for the schools that are there now, because our children have seen so much black death and illness, not just due to COVID, but also because of the police killings. And carry that, because I know I carry it, right? And the anxiety that it gives me. So imagine being a child and carrying that and not knowing what to do with it, right? And so I think that we got to be looking at these school budgets just like we're looking at police budgets. We've got to look at school budgets, because those are our priorities. Those are our morals. And so if we're spending millions of dollars, like in Texas, I know, Sybil, there are like Houston and Dallas where they have school police departments. It's not just the SRO from the local police department. They have hundreds of police officers with dogs and cruisers. So they're spending millions of dollars on a school police department, and kids don't have computers. They don't have counselors. You got one counselor who goes to 10 different schools. They don't have psychiatrists. There's so many things that our babies need. And instead, we've decided that we should have police. And with the idea that we're keeping them safe. We're not keeping them safe.
And
what keeps them safe is joy.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, say it again, Judith. Yeah, that's great, because that is absolutely the truth. We have just one, we have a lot of people asking us questions, but before we close, we have on YouTube asking, do the mail-in votes get tabulated through a machine the same way that our votes as we do in person?
Yes, in most places. Like in Maryland, well, it's great. You could actually have your ballot emailed to you. So I printed it out. So that's not going through a machine. They will do that separately. But yes, it goes through a machine. And also realize that different states do it different ways with regard to when they start to count, right? Some states, they've been counting all along. Some states, they wait until November 3rd, or they may wait until all of the ballots are in. So this is the other thing that's crazy is we have these states that run elections 50 different ways. And we have 13,000 districts, like election districts, that run elections 13,000 different ways. So unfortunately, it's like every place is very different.
Yeah, and the mail-in and all of that, and voting by computer, and there's just so much there.
Right.
Judith Browne Dianis, you are an absolute font of information. We appreciate your time. Will you come back again?
Yes, I would love to. I would love to. Thank you for all you do, Sybil. Thank you. We all appreciate you.
Tell us quickly about your work with Jesse Williams. We were not able to get.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. He got scheduled. He had to do apparently some scenes over. I don't know, for Grey's Anatomy.
For a little show that he's on, yeah.
Shonda Rhimes calls, you have to go. So Jesse Williams is on our board. He's been on our board for a number of years. He's on Grey's Anatomy, for those who don't know him. Also an activist. So he engages with a lot of our work. So he'll do videos for us. We're working on a film around policing that really that highlights how policing has impacted influencers like celebrities and artists, etc. Because their story, Black folks, is the same story as we have, right? All of us regular people people have. And so we're working on a film together. He's incredible. He's very learned. He's into Black history. So he's just a great partner and co-conspirator in our mission. This work.
And he's a former school teacher, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was a teacher for a short minute. He was in the charter school, so he don't talk about it too much. But he was a teacher. Yes, he was. But
as the daughter of a school teacher, I always love the fact that people did that at one point.
Yeah, I am too. My mom was a third grade teacher and then worked her way up to a superintendent. So I have a soft spot for teachers.
Absolutely, I'm right there with you. So thank you so much for joining us. And if there's anything that we need to know, this is the last question. For people who feel as though their vote is being suppressed in some way or another when they're going to the polls, what's the best way for them to take action while they're there?
So here's what you need to do. If you feel that your vote was suppressed, or that, for example, you go to a polling place and there's some intimidation happening, call 1-866-OUR-VOTE, OURVOTE. On that, there are people there who take in calls, and we do troubleshooting. We send people out to the polling places, etc. So please do use that number if you have a problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will look forward to talking to you again. And like I said, if anything happens between now and Tuesday and you want to hop on, just please let us know. And thanks to Michael Perry for bringing us together.
Yes, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on one second, George. George wants to come back with his crackly self and say,
George, it wasn't me. It was you. It was you.
It was him.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
What are you eating over there? What are you eating?
Ice cream.
It's the Haagen-Dazs triple.
Nice.
In Washington, D.C. You're based out of Washington, D.C.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Look forward to seeing you.
The D.C. stands for the country. You live in the country.
Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for working out in Florida, getting the people straight down in Florida. Okay.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do what I can. All right. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hey, George, thank you. I'm sorry that we had those issues. I don't know what it is with you and when we have guests on, there's just something.
It's not me, it's the other people.
Something electric, George, but when we took you out, it stopped.
Okay, I'm gonna move. I'll move to another state. Make sure we get this right, okay?
No.
Sybil, you did a wonderful job with everybody, and I heard the questions, and you were certainly wonderful with Jaime. But Mr. Jesse, is he still with us? Was he here?
He was not able to make it. No, he had to do some extra scenes, extra work there on the set of Grey's Anatomy. So we were unable. So maybe next time we can keep you without the technical difficulties and get him and Judith back.
Well, my job is just keep people coming in. I'm working right now on Mr. Warnock. That's who we're going to get.
Oh, Raphael Warnock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what we're going to get because he's going to be in a runoff. And possibly, could we talk to John Ossoff?
I think we can probably, we will work our asses off to make sure that happens.
Work your ass off for John Ossoff. Make sure you get out there and vote. It is very important. And those of you who have not voted, try to do it. And they say it's too late to drop it off at the mailbox, and we don't trust the mailbox.
They're not encouraging people to do the mail and at this late date. They're saying please go and drop your mail-in ballot off at those collected boxes that are collecting.
However, Supreme Court has sided with Pennsylvania and North Carolina on 2 days later and 9 days later, and those votes
with the Democrats. A big win for the Democrats by the Supreme Court, surprisingly enough, with the newly heavily conservative Supreme Court. George, thank you. George, what are you going to do on Tuesday? I know you said you're going to go out and honk the horn at night, but are you going to be out and about on Tuesday during the day?
I don't go out. I'm of age. See, I'm 89 years old.
Okay.
I'm 89 years old. And I'm 5 pounds overweight. I meet all of the pre-existing conditions. I'm borderline diabetic.
Everything.
And so I'm gonna talk and just try and help people get to the polls and have fun at the polls.
Okay, well, I would encourage you if you can and get Phoebe or some of the your other kids to get you out and about. I think you could bring a lot of joy to people to the polls on Tuesday.
You don't know what my daughter just did. You mentioned her name, Phoebe. She just flipped. Just flipped.
I love Phoebe, so
all of my kids, Michelle up in Washington, D.C. Hello to everybody. Sherry, everybody's watching. And thank y'all for watching. Sybil, you did a wonderful job. I love you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And we're going to win. We're going to win like never before. And when we get these Democrats in office, there's going to be no bullshit. They're going to have to get things done. Puerto Rico has become a state. Washington, D.C. has become a state. We got to get rid of the no-knock policy. We got to get rid of all of that stuff. So let me ask you a question, because I know you got to go. What's the purpose of no-knock policy? The people are still in the house. They're going to be there tomorrow morning when they come out. So why you got to go in such a hurry?
Yeah, George, there's so many things within our police departments around the country that don't make any sense. And so the no-knock policy, they said, was to prevent, like, especially in drug cases, from knowing that they're coming to be able to flush the drugs down the toilet and things like that.
Well, the same stuff is in the house. It doesn't matter. The police are crazy right now, and we're going to have to straighten this out. When we get in office, we're just going to have to work and make it happen. It's going to be a better America. Trust me.
I pray that you're right, George. I really do believe that there is going to be a brighter day. So,
and maybe I should run for office and really get things straight.
Now you're talking. I would do that. I would love to be a part of your campaign.
But everybody knows what my first law I'm going to pass, right? Chick-fil-A going to be open on Sunday. I don't give a damn. That's the first. That's the first law I'm going to pass.
And so only if your football team would work on Sundays too. That would be great.
Listen to me. We got teams in Atlanta. We got birds in Atlanta can't fly. We got the Hawks and we got the Falcons. We got birds that can't fly. Something wrong with us. I don't know what it is.
George, we got a team in Illinois and Chicago that they're in hibernation.
The Bulls?
No, the Bears.
Oh, the Bears.
Yeah. They're not as good as people think they are.
They beat Atlanta, though, didn't they?
Goodbye, George. We're being told we got to go. All right, darling. I appreciate you, George, and I'll talk to you soon.
You got a deal.
Thank you, everybody. Please go to SybilWilkes.com and sign up for our free newsletter. And please continue to subscribe to Sybil Wilkes, our channel here on YouTube and the Facebook page as well.
And
thanks, everybody.
Tweet me at Mr. George Wallace. Tweet me at Mr. George Wallace. We need to see you there.